Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about The Blinding Knife by Brent Weeks, the second book in the Lightbringer series. So, as usual, we're going to talk non-spoilery thoughts and opinions up front and then move over to the spoiler section where we can talk in more detail. So, with that being said, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and let's begin. So, when it comes to the Lightbringer saga, by the time I finished it, I ended up kind of not liking it as much as I liked it, like, while reading it. Like, there were some decisions and some of the payoffs and stuff that happened towards the end I wasn't a real big fan of. So, I'm kind of, during this reread, I've been trying to pretty much figure out where those issues kind of started. So, I think it kind of starts here. So some of the issues that I later on had an issue with was the nature of the way the stories kind of separate. Gavin has a very different kind of story than Kip does. And I guess initially, it probably has an issue, more has to do with my perception or my expectations from the book, really, because the first one kind of got me under the impression that it was going to be like their story, more so than Kip having a story and Gavin having a story, and kind of just like they're related and they kind of fold together, but not in the way that I was expecting. So I think that's kind of where the initial issue I have starts. It's in this one, they're very separated. But that's something that kind of becomes a problem for me later. In this book, I don't really have a problem with it because the story kind of works really well the way it's done. The pacing is really good. The characters are really solid. This is where we kind of really fill in a lot of the characterization and we kind of get a real solid understanding of who these characters are. And we obviously learn a lot more about some backgrounds and some more of the world and the way things work. And it just kind of fills out the world a lot more. And it's really enjoyable. So for this one, I want to jump pretty much right into spoilers because for me, it's a little hard to talk about this story without spoiling stuff, especially since a lot of it is dependent on having read the first one. So I assume if you've read the first one, you probably continue because the first one was pretty good. So let's go jump into spoilers. So spoilers for The Blinding Knife by Brent Weeks. So, for the first third of the book, we have Gavin and Karis going around in the ocean looking for one of the Banes that have been created, the Blue Bane, because during pretty much at the exact same time when his brother got out of the Blue prison, he lost his ability to draft blue and to see blue. So now everything's kind of not entirely colorblind, but he can't see shades of blue. So because the prism doesn't have control of blue, that color is now like out of control. So a large concentration of that color is coalescing into what is known as a bane, which is hard to explain, but essentially it results in a god of that color and of that aspect. So while searching for the Blue Bane, Karis and Gavin end up going to the island where the seer is, and basically end up striking a deal with her to allow all the refugees from the fight that happened in the first book during the Battle of Brightwater and stuff, like allow all those people to come over and live there basically as refugees. And through some machinations and stuff later, he ends up making that island a new satrapy and making Oliviana's dad the new satrap for that location. So it's some interesting political maneuvering that happens like partway through the book as well. So all while they're looking for the Bane and stuff like that and going around and doing all this, there's a lot of like relationship stuff because Gavin was dating Karis, and like there's a whole lot of stuff because Gavin is actually dazing, and like there's just all kinds of drama and stuff that happens. A lot of it is like interpersonal, like kind of in the head, kind of dealing with it, and like a lot of it's like yelling. It's just, I don't know. To me, I didn't really enjoy it a lot because in my head I was like, okay, y'all are probably going to end up together anyway. So all of this mishmashing stuff going on along the way, I kind of was like, all right, whatever. I was ready to jump past it, so I found it kind of boring. And while all that stuff is going on out in the water, Kip is back in the Chromeria. He's training with the Blackguard, and like now he's like pretty much got a little group of friends. He's making friends with people and has his own little crew, and basically is learning the ropes and stuff and seeing kind of how everything works, seeing all the games and maneuvering and stuff that happens even with inside the group of trainees while they're trying to get into the Blackguard. And also, while doing this, his grandfather Andros is continuing to make his life a living hell. He's using his superior skill in the Nine Kings card game, to basically manipulate Kip. They basically keep wagering like his ability to go to practicum, the practical lessons, so where he can actually learn how to draft more and stuff like that. So he's like losing those privileges and stuff. So now he's like learning how to play the game more, and they're like basically it's kind of this roundabout way that Andros is teaching him how to be manipulative and kind of how to maneuver and how to politic and how to think in a more court worthy way kind of thing, like to use that guile because like their family is known for having such guile and stuff and being basically slick and manipulative and kind of slimy. Like so in a way he's kind of training that, but he's doing it in the harshest way possible. But what easily has to be the most interesting thing to happen in the story, which is a huge reveal in the story, is about the blinding knife itself. So we kind of learn through different conversations that the knife that Kip has is, or at least has to, something to do with the prism ceremony, from one prism becoming another, like, you know, passing on that mantle or whatever. It has something to do with it. And after Gavin has gotten like sliced with it and then lost blue, and like the blue gem in it is like blue or whatever, like later on there's an issue on the boat. There's this situation where Kip realizes that Andros is a white. He has broken his halos and he's kind of going insane. And as a red, they tend to get really violent and stuff like that. So Kip was in this situation where he was trying to expose Andros, and when he does this, they end up in like a scuffle or whatever. And basically, between Gavin, Kip, and Andros, there's like this three-way fight thing. And then Gavin sees that the knife is about to be used on his father. Then he pushes it like away, and then he sees that Andros has basically directed it towards Kip, and it was going to kill Kip. And then to save Kip, he jumps in the way, so it stabs Gavin, and he loses all his ability to draft, and he's completely colorblind. And now the blinding knife is no longer like a dagger; it's this long sword. Well, it's like a sword with like a gun hilt kind of thing, and it's basically this whole other kind of weapon. And then like the book basically ends with Kip and Gavin going overboard and then being picked up by Gunner, a pirate that's basically been talked about throughout the story as well. So that kind of leads us into the next story where Gavin has no ability to draft and he's colorblind, and now he's made like a deck slave. And once again, we have a situation where these two stories separate. So it's showing again like these are two parallel stories. They're not hyper connected. They are connected, but it's like we don't have them together in the way that I really assumed that the story was going to go. So that's where a lot of the stuff kind of happens. And there's a lot of interesting questions, apart from some of the cool events and action scenes and stuff that take place in the story. There's a lot of interesting questions because the magic itself is so interwoven into the religion. So the entire idea of the Lightbringer is kind of like this Jesus Christ type figure, where like the Lightbringer is supposed to come back one day, or like he's prophesied to come back and that kind of thing. But then there's debate on to whether or not he had already come back before, and he was this other this like really revered drafter person that created the glasses that they use where they can look at any color light, and it changes, you know, based on the lens color, it changes the light that they see so they can draft that color. Like, so he invented that kind of stuff, but he wasn't like great with magic, so like he doesn't totally fulfill the prophecies and stuff, but some of the people are saying that he was that person and all that. So like this is the point where we start to see kind of, it starts to slightly work in Kip's head. He's like wondering if he's, you know, does he fit the pretty much the prophecies, because he honestly does fit. Like as it keeps going, it's revealed more parts of the prophecy, and he kind of does fit it. Like he doesn't know whether or not he's a genius of magic, and it's hard to even declare him a genius of magic or anything like that, but he does instinctually learn how to use a lot of drafting like really, really easily. So who knows based on the way that's defined. So something else, I'm kind of all over the place, but something else I also want to mention before I wrap up is this is also where we get introduced to the character of Zyman. Zyman is probably one of the most irrelevant, useless characters I can think of in fiction. Like there's like a trope of Zane being really useless in Mistborn, in the later Mistborn books and stuff, but like this character, he is like such a weird plot device, and it's like it starts off from jump like he's unlikable, and it just keeps going, and it's interesting looking back on it, knowing what ends up happening to this character, knowing what happens like overall with his story arc. Like he fulfills a purpose, but he feels incredibly useless. And it's like, it's kind of interesting. Also, there's a lot of stuff that, like, the way it pans out, as I said before, the series as a whole soured, the ending of the series as a whole, and some of the way some of the things panned out soured my opinion on the series by itself. But as an individual book in the series, I do say that this one is good. But I can't not separate the fact that I'm seeing a lot of the cracks early on and a lot clearer now based on the fact that I already know the way it happens and what I don't like about it. So, yeah, I'm sorry, this is a weird review and I'm kind of rambling about it. So, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and say, have you read The Blinding Knife? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments down below, like, what kind of things did you notice upon finishing the series, if you have finished the series? Like, what kind of interesting points that you notice in this one that influence later on? But, of course, put a spoiler tag in your comment. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And I will talk to you all next time. Peace.